Oh my god! All right, story time. We told you we were going into story time.
Got some unnamed beverages and mugs.
Yep.
So, I've played a lot of RPGs, and I've got specific things that just always kind of stick with me, either as a GM or as a player. One of my favorite stories that I like to tell people is one that happened back in college. So, the adventuring party, I was DMing 3.5. The adventuring party was trying to catch and kill a gigantic, well, I'm not sure if it was gigantic, but a large snapping turtle that was terrorizing the local village up and down their river. And they were looking through all of their stuff, and like this was a special made monster that I had, and they're trying to figure out, okay, so how do we bait this thing? And we're like, well, hey, remember those owl bears we killed? We've got their, musk sacks, and I'm like, oh my god, okay, sure. And they're like, okay, so we're gonna make some bait. We're gonna cover them in this owl bear pheromones, and we're gonna throw them in the river. And I'm like, I'm half paying attention to this point because I'm like, okay, whatever they do, I'm gonna let it work because this is what's coming. And I'm like, let's cover Miles. And I'm like, from the screen, I'm like, what? I look at, yeah, let's cover Miles. Miles, we'll throw you in the river and we'll use you as bait. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I look at Miles and Miles is like, I mean, okay, I guess. I'm like, I didn't stop him. I'm like, are you sure you want to use your character as bait? So,
Big yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So they cover Miles in owl bear pheromones. They tie a rope around him, and they throw him in the river, which I have described as a relatively fast-moving river. And he kind of gets tangled up in the rope, and people are holding onto the rope, and then the giant snapping turtle shows up. So everyone starts fighting the snapping turtle. I'm like, well, do you keep holding onto the rope? He's like, no, I gotta pull up my great axe. Okay, let's go of the rope. And the snapping turtle now knows that there's a fight on the bank, so it comes up and starts fighting him. Miles fails his swim check. Miles gets swept down the river, getting entangled in this rope. And they kill the giant snapping turtle, and they take it ashore, and they start building camp, and they clean it and everything. Like, ooh, it's a cool turtle. It's, I had some rangers in the party that just loved to dissect everything. So, Miles tried to make 1 or 2 more checks, like a survival check and stuff. And I'm like, I really went around the table. I'm like, do you go look for Miles? No, I'm setting the tents up. Do you look for Miles? No, I'm busy, cleaning the turtle. Do you look for Miles? I'm building a cooking fire. And I'm like, well, Miles is dead. Everyone's like, what? Like, Miles is, for lack of a better term, miles away from camp. Failed his survival role. Is in the middle of the wilderness, soaking wet, exhausted, and covered in owlbear pheromones. It was a violent death. Miles is like, yeah. Because I wasn't going to have him roll against owlbears by himself because he was screwed. So that's the one way I killed the player without technically rolling damage.
I got 3 stories to share, but I'll split them up, Yep. But I'm gonna share them in succession of addition. So I'm gonna go back to my early days in 3.5 here. That's where I got my start, was 3.5, and I don't know, when did you get your start in T&D?
I think it was technically it was 3.5, but I think we put a lot of 3.
Yeah,
it was on that cusp.
Yeah. So it's 3.5, and we were. I was playing as a player, and we were basically out to sea on a ship that was an inn/tavern, and we had basically sailed into a storm, and the storm wrecked the ship. or I think we ran aground onto like a sheer point of rocks, and it split the hull in half, and we basically everybody flooded out into the ocean, and I think to go back a little bit, I think leading up to this point, bandits had established themselves inside the ship, and then they took basically control of the ship while we were out to sea, but didn't know how to sail, and that's what happened. We wrecked. We all kind of flooded out into the ocean, and we washed up on a stormy shore of rocks, just like an island of sharp, jagged rocks, right? Like small, real shallow, right off the water, in the middle of a storm. And we climb up onto the. This was like a one-off session kind of thing, but we climb up onto the rocks and we notice there's a steel hatch, like a door, like a trap door leading into the ground on this rocky thing. So we're like, oh, well, we're trying to pry it open. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's these gigantic bats, for some reason, out in the ocean, flying around. So we're fighting these bats off when we're trying to get inside. We finally get the door open. We go down inside. And it's like a long ladder going down into basically what could be described as a dungeon of clear glass tunnels.
Okay.
Under the water. 3.5 is wild. People had some crazy ideas back then. But, yeah, so we're basically, scurrying around room to room, finding stuff and whatnot. We come across this, I think we ended up, we fought some Kuatoa back, which is weird because like 3.5 Kuatoa are like frogs and now Kuatoa are like fish people.
Yeah.
And I kind of miss the 3.5.
I mean, they have the actual
people.
frog now.
Like the grunts. Yeah, which is weird because that was Kuatoa back in 3.5 and earlier, right? Because like
I don't remember.
In Kuatoa, like when they got angry, they'd like turn red and like all this weird shit.
I never used them.
But anyway, they were frogs, and now they're not frogs; they're fish. So anyway, we fought a bunch of them, and then we found this like I think it was like some sort of wizard's library under there, but it was like a glass dome under the ocean.
It's a great place for a library.
Yeah.
Expensive books under,
We're sitting there looking,
gallons of water.
We're looking through shit, and this is how the session ends with. All of a sudden, we're kind of looking out into nothing, and just this large tentacle, like suctions itself across the tube, and then just pulls itself off into the depths, and then nothing, and that's how the session ended. It was just a one-off thing, but it was, it's weird because that, I don't remember. There's a lot of games I remember. But there's a lot of games where I have to think hard to remember. And I remember that pretty much exactly how it happened in my, I can remember that every day of the week, And that was 3.5. Do you have any crazy 3.5 stories?
Besides the
That's not really
one.
crazy, it's just a nice story to share, but
let's see if there's any 3.5 stories that were.
I think I was playing a rogue then too, if I remember right.
One of my first characters in 3.5 was a dwarven barbarian that you can be illiterate in 3.5, and I specifically kept him illiterate. And that was his whole shtick, is whenever he came to a new town, he'd find the bar, and he'd give the barkeep a bunch of money, and tell me about this town.
Well, I mean, isn't that weird too? Because you could be illiterate, but wouldn't you understand this much money is more than this much money?
Well, no, he knew how much money was worth.
Oh, yeah.
He paid the barkeep to tell him about the town.
Oh, I get you.
He'd come in and just I have disposable wealth. Info, please. 3.5 wasn't that crazy. I do have a really fun 4E story though.
Go ahead. Man.
It's from the game that we met.
Oh, yes.
So in 4E, I was running a public game at Parallax Computers and Games, and I run with just random people, and I met this guy who said to come play, and your character's name was Ben.
That was straight out of the player's handbook. 2 N's.
Ben.
I'll let you know this is like 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
It's insane. 10 years.
So,
we've known each other for 10 years.
well, there was a big gap, wasn't there?
Well, I mean, I was away doing stuff, but
Okay.
I moved.
So, you were playing a fighter named Ben, and my friend Nelson was in the game as well. And you guys kind of bonded and paired up and did mischievous antics.
Yes.
So, one of the places you guys kind of got in really a lot of trouble was there was a guild master that you guys wanted to get paid from because the other guild master, which was still part of like the same group, was going to pay you and got killed. So you guys went to a different town to get paid by the other guy. The other guy said, "No, I'm not paying you," and so that made Nelson really, I want to say angry, but in games, if you screw him over in just a little bit, he will in-game try to right the wrongs and get justice. So he convinced you to break in to the guildmaster's like office after hours.
Which wasn't difficult. I mean, my character's name was Ben.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So getting in the office was no problem at all. So you guys go up, you find the money chest. Ben goes to open the money chest. Opens it, click. Spray in the face, and your character falls asleep. And then the chest closes. Nelson's like, "Oh, well, it was trapped. It must be deactivated." He opens the chest, sprays him in the face, falls asleep. You're both asleep.
Yeah.
You both get arrested. And the guildmaster convinces the guards that all the gold that you had on you was his. And that made Nelson even more happy. But
Yep. So then we were pissed and had to break out from jail.
broke.
Broke out. Yeah.
And broke. Broke out. No, that's what I meant.
It broke out and we were broke.
Broke.
And no doubt broke some stuff. Yeah. After we broke out.
Yeah, that campaign was crazy.
Yeah. It was, so I had like a 4E story. So we had this. I was dimming for some guys out of high school, and basically we were kind of playing in an Eberron setting in 4E, and basically we were like in Sharn, and if you're familiar with Sharn, it's a big ass city, but tall spires and towers and stuff, and basically they were. Before coming to Sharn, they were all like a kind of like a thieves' party, in a way. Like they just robbed this tower outside of Sharn for all of its riches, and while they were at camp, they had like this tiefling NPC player that was with them, that like in the middle of the night like drugged them and robbed them of all their shit. You know, just took everything. So they were broke, and they woke up. They're mad. You know, they're broke, and they went to Sharn and. Looking for work and stuff, trying to figure out how they could, you know, either find this person, find anything about this person, or come up with some more funds to kind of continue along their way. And it's kind of like an open world kind of thing. And they're out in public. They're out in like the market squares, or the way the town's set up. And they see this tiefling in the crowd turn around, and it's the gal that was with them that stole their crap. And so she starts taking off running. Well, they pursue. And they start running after her, and all of a sudden she climbs up to rooftops, and she's like hopping across rooftops and stuff, and two of the players, I think like the elf rogue or whatever, and maybe the ranger or whatever, was all hopping on the roofs, and then like all the heavier players like stole a cart and like were chasing them on with a cart and down the road, and all of a sudden the wizard character's in the cart, I think with the dwarf cleric or something, and the wizard's like casting spells that, like, we're doing this all mid combat, and about like 4 rounds in or whatever, the wizard hits the tiefling with a sleep spell. So while she's jumping across a roof, she like falls asleep and goes tumbling through a upstairs or a second story window into an estate. And yeah. So they enter that home, and she's no longer in there. So she got up and got out, and all of a sudden, they're kind of looking through the estate, and there's nobody there, but there's like potions and manuscripts and all this crazy like alchemical stuff everywhere. Clearly an alchemist's home, and like the wizard character's looking at all these weird blue potions that are like frosty and cold to the touch and stuff. And all of a sudden the hearth like starts like to move and pop and lock and drop and doing all that stuff. It comes
Pop and
alive.
lock.
It comes
Sorry.
alive.
Sorry.
Okay? It comes alive.
Starts the day.
A hearth golem in 40. So
Okay.
yeah, so it turns into a hearth golem, and they have to fight this thing because it's like going to tear apart the house, and they could have just left. They decided to fight it. So they figured out that these potions, blue potions, were like ice potion kind of thing. They would freeze the thing. So they were like basically hucking these potions at the hearth golem and like freezing certain parts of the body, and then hitting it while it couldn't move, and then it would warm back up and get after him. But basically they were like doing that, you know. And yeah, I never did find that tiefling character, but they rode some like pterodactyl kind of creatures and stuff like that after that. But it was a little fun, like three-parter. But
RPGs can just get out there on the things you can run.
yeah, yep. There's a lot of you can get pretty wild. Yeah. God, I should tell you about the demonic black, like
Oh, the Pearl of Doom?
the Doom Nugget.
Doom Nugget. What was that we called it at the end?
Yeah, Doom Nugget. Well, that's what you guys nicknamed it.
Yeah.
It was, I think, the Pearl. I don't know what the Pearl was called. I don't think it had a name.
We didn't know if there was
But
a name.
the name,
Called it Doom Nugget.
The name, it had a name after the fact. Like once the whole thing was said and done, I made a mistake. Just a little mistake. So this is 5e now.
Your first big campaign in 5e.
My first big campaign. I mean, I think campaign like was just over a year. I feel like, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you include like there was like a month we didn't play, and like,
Yeah.
you know, a month we had one session, but 12 sessions. We had 12 sessions.
Yeah.
That's what my board says.
Well,
So 12 sessions.
12 sessions, level 7.
Yes,
Nice.
level 7 at 12 sessions. Jesus. XP.
Yeah.
I probably could have been putting more out there, but anyway, so I made the mistake of giving my was he Eldritch Knight character?
It wasn't necessarily the Eldritch Knight character, just in general.
I made a mistake of handing out an item. It was an on-the-spot decision.
Plots, for plot purposes, it made sense because it was this like demonic little like black pearl that was corrupting the water source of the town, which was causing a bunch of problems.
Well, and
caused a lot of problems.
Yeah, basically this thing they had a pearl they found in a well, and they lifted all the water, and it's just like just a deafening screech that made them feel physically ill. Right?
Yeah. Doom Nugget.
Put it back in water, and then it's fine.
Yeah.
So they like filled a water skin full of water and dropped it in there.
Portal Doom Nugget. Yeah.
Right. Well, they had this little vial of silver, and like silver was a main theme in this campaign. And there's like a vial like liquid quicksilver kind of stuff. And basically, sitting back at the inn in the town that the first part of the campaign starts at, and they're sitting around there. They're looking at these two things, and they're like, I think the Goliath character. I think it was his decision, wasn't it?
Kind of Josh's too.
Oh yeah, okay. So our wizard character and our Goliath character kind of are like thinking, well, what happens if we pour that silver on that Doom Nugget?
I mean, silver is good. Doom Nugget's bad. Maybe we can get rid of it.
As a GM, I had no idea.
You didn't know we were gonna do that.
I didn't know what was going on, so I made a quick, on-the-spot decision. A terrible one.
I mean, the initial part was kind of cool.
Well, okay, the initial part was cool. So, they pour this quicksilver on this nugget. And all of a sudden, boom! Smoke. Blast of energy and they blow out like the wall of their inn.
Yeah, we kind of destroyed part of the inn, which was fine. We were actually pretty wealthy at that point.
Yeah, they fixed it.
Just throw gold at problems and they go away.
Yep. Laying on the floor in place of this silver and this nugget.
Probably the worst. No.
It was bad.
It's badly designed.
It was badly designed. It was badly designed because it was designed on the spot.
You didn't realize how big the pluses were.
I didn't realize. Well, no, that wasn't even the problem. The problem was the throwing mechanic.
Still, the pluses were bad too.
Well, wasn't it only? It was only a +1, wasn't it?
No, you said 3 at first.
Was it +3? Oh no, it was +1, but it was +3. I made a stupid decision. Okay, I made a demonic dagger with a personality, kinda. Well, it didn't have a personality. It had a way of influencing the person who
it could
carried
possess.
it. Yeah. You basically had to pass a wisdom save, or you might stab your buddy.
Yep.
You know. So it was +1 dagger, and I don't know what I was thinking, but it was an on-the-spot decision. I said, and I quote, I believe, +3 when thrown. What?
And it was like, and there was the second part of that too was like, and bonus damage against innocence, which we're like, what do you mean?
I
innocence?
feel like,
so like this,
like if the cleric decided innocent, it's dead, you know. But here's the thing: don't make magic items on the fly when you don't understand how to make magic items like correctly.
we were all at that point. I want to say, were we not even level 5 yet?
I think level 3 or 4.
Level 3 or 4. That puts you better into scope of how breaking this thing was.
No, we were level 5.
We're level 5?
We started this campaign at level 5. Didn't we?
No, we started at 3.
I think we started at 3.
So we're at level 5. It's an amazing. And then it possessed people, and then it kind of corrupted someone's arm. And
oh yeah, I forgot about that. That's fun. So, yeah, basically
the balance to it was possessing our Goliath.
Every time Gargleton Cragbar, our Goliath Eldritch Knight, would use the damn dagger, he would have to pass a wisdom save. If he didn't, it would convince him to do something naughty, and it would spread this curse that it was laying upon him, basically turning him into a skeleton, like just rotting his flesh away.
Skeletal arms.
Yeah, so he had like a skeletal arm or hand or something, hand up to elbow, something like that, and it was eventually going to take like the if he didn't deal with it, it would just eventually consume him. So I believe the cleric took the dagger away from him, and they sealed it away somehow.
I don't remember how we got rid of it.
I think that's what happened. So now he was just like stuck with half the curse.
Yeah.
You know, something like that. And what a dumb.
I actually made
learning experiences. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I made an item in 3.5 that was a learning experience for me.
Yeah.
It was called Backbite, and it was a great axe that you could wager a D12 of health for D12 more damage. So it was a great axe.
Jeez.
Yeah, no, it was something that you did. It was just crazy. So
here, take my life, give you power.
Yeah, so it was like, so you had basically it was like a +1 great axe. It was called Backbiter. So it's great axe, but it does a D12 damage. It's +1, so it's +1 hit, +1 damage. But it had this thing called where you could wager. So when you go to swing, you can see I'm going to wager, and you roll a D12 before you roll your attack roll. You lose that many hit points, and it adds that much damage. And they loved it. I didn't think it was that broken because you still took that damage, but they just healed the crap out of that player, and they used him as a kind of bulldozing effect. You know, getting through fights faster, but keeping him alive. So it was pretty, you know, worked all right. Trying to think of any crazy items out there that I've given to people.
Yeah, that was the craziest. That was stupid. Yeah, but you gotta use those. You gotta use those instances as learning.
Yeah, learning
moments. You know. Yeah, especially with magic items, like you really gotta know how stuff's gonna work. You know. In order to really run one up.
You know how they lost Backbiter?
What was that?
So I gave him a shield. I can't remember what I called it.
Front licker?
No, not front licker. Oh, that's so bad. So bad. Yeah, okay. So I gave him this magical shield in 3.5, and I gave him this property how it could break weapons. It was a sundering shield. I can't remember what the rules were exactly, but they got this thing, and they didn't have anybody in the group at that session that could identify. So they're like, tie it to the tree and like hit it with things, and I'm trying to figure it out, and they're like, hey, hit it with your axe, and I'm like, okay. The whole thing about it was basically when you swung at the shield and you missed because of AC, I behind the screen would roll damage dice. And if it was a certain amount of damage dice, the Sundering Shield would break it. So they were using little daggers and sticks and stuff to hit this shield so it didn't break the weapons. Well, then they break out Backbiter, and like, okay, I'm gonna wager, and he gets like a freaking 10, and then he goes and hits the shield and rolls like an 8, so 18 damage. Yeah, I mean that's more than enough. So you go hit it with this massive axe, and it just annihilates it. So they lost their own magic item by testing things.
Yeah.
They weren't salty. I was actually surprised.
Well,
Story time.
I think that was story time, right?
We probably have more out there, but
We'll share more stories in the future.
I don't even know if you guys really like these. I like talking about them.
Damn it, you're gonna see it anyway.
Story time. You're gonna sit there and you're gonna listen.
You're gonna listen, and you're gonna go to bed on time. And you only get one story, and then you're gonna go to bed.
Yeah.
And then Daddy's gonna drink.